Ugh.
What?
It smells like vinegar.
That's not good. Okay. So, we got number 1, number 3. Both limits. One limit goes to 2 from the positive side, and one limit goes to negative infinity, right?
Yeah.
So let's look at the difference between the two. This side, we know that there is an asymptote at 2. And the reason is, if we take out a 2 here...
Wait. That says -2.
Oh, it's supposed to say -2?
It's supposed to say -2.
We were about to figure that out in a minute, because when we pull this 2 out, we're going to go x plus 2, right? And so what that means is that this function, right, has a asymptote at -2. When I plug a -2 in, that goes to 0 on the bottom, right? That means there's an asymptote at -2. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? So it asks us to check from the positive side of that -2. That means we're coming from this direction. Now we kind of like to stay away from zeros, but sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, there's not 2 asymptotes, so we're good to go with the 0. But if there were 2 asymptotes, we would want to stay away from the 0, because weird things happen at 0. The other thing we know is there a horizontal asymptote? The top is bigger than the bottom. So if the top's bigger than the bottom, there is no horizontal asymptote, so we're good there. Okay? Alright, so if we're coming from this side, what numbers are good then?
1.
Yeah, well, or -1.
Or yeah, that's what I meant. -1.
-1 and 0, right?
Yeah.
Now, I know it's going to be, if I plug in 0, it's going to be 0, right?
Yeah.
Because this x goes to 0, so f of 0 is going to equal 0, which means 0 and 0. So at the origin, I have a point. Now when I plug in -1, it's going to either go up or it's going to go down. And that's going to let me know whether the function's going towards infinity or negative infinity. So, let's check it out. We're going to go f of -1 equals, well, -1 squared would be 1, right? So that's -1, since the negative is on the outside of that. Okay? Alright, but then we've got -1 plus 2 would be 1, times 2 would be 2. So it would be at -1/2. But what happens here is it goes to negative. So the limit, as it approaches from the positive side, is going to go towards negative infinity. So that's our limit. Okay?
I'm from way, better get your guapa. Better keep it on your tapa. For tapa, no parka. Better get your bumped.
Is that number 1?
Yeah.
Sweet. Alright.
Got it back.
Number 3. Alright, so let's take a look at 3. What's going on with 3? Well, we want to check out the bottom. The problem with the bottom is it's never going to go to 0, right? Because if you plug in a negative, it always becomes positive. Okay? So that means we have no horizontal asymptotes. Okay? What is going to happen is we're going to end up with we have no vertical asymptotes. We're going to end up with a horizontal asymptote. They're both the same, and when they're both the same, this power and this power are the same, right? That means it's the coefficient, right, of those two powers that becomes their horizontal asymptote. So we're going to have a horizontal asymptote at -3 over 1, which is -3. Okay? So, my guess is that as we go to negative infinity, our limit will be -3. How do we prove that guess? We know we have a horizontal asymptote at 1, 2, 3, negative, right? So now we want to prove, right, Chica?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You're killing me, young lady. Walking out on me. Typical. That's the story of my life. Brothers walk in, sisters walk out.
Somebody come get this N-word.
Alright, here we go. So, towards -3, right?
Let me tell you a little story about a bad.
We want to come in to negative infinity. So, the first problem I would put in, I would stay away from 0, and I would just look at -10 and -100.
She have to go high because too.
And see what happens, right? So, what is f of -10? So if I look at -10, 10 squared is what?
100.
100. And -10 squared is still 100, right?
Yeah.
So 100 times 3,
300.
so we got -300 over, and then 10 squared again is
100.
100, and 100 plus 9 is 109. So, now how many times this, and this time I'm going to actually do the math, because last time I guessed at it, which is still okay. I get the idea of what's going on, but some of the students didn't. So, let's just do the math. What is -300 divided by 109?
What'd you say?
Oh, we hear you.
2.75. So, approximately. So this is approximately 2.75 negative,
Is
right?
that infinity?
No, it's just, that's what it's at, so it's like 1, 2, and 7, 5. So it's like right here, right?
Oh.
Now we want to see, is it getting closer to -3 or further away, right? If it's getting further away, then it's going to go to positive infinity, okay? But if it gets closer to -3, then it's going towards -3. Does that make sense? So let's see what happens. F of -100. So what's 100 squared?
1,000.
Close.
10,000.
Yes. So times 3 would be -3 and 4 zeros, 30,000, right? And then 10 squared, 10,000 again, right? Plus 9, so that'd be 10,009.
So what squared equals 1,000?
Huh?
So what squared equals 1,000?
That's a good question. We can talk about that when I'm not filming, but you know, the logarithm of something, right? It's not going to be nice. Like, it's not going to be a nice square, right? Because 10 times 10. So
Yeah.
it's going to be somewhere between, well, let's just figure out later. All right. So square root 1,000, and then you'll know. Okay. So let's take 30,000 and divide it by 10,009. And we get -2,997. We get -2.997. So it is getting closer to -3, right? So what's happening out here is it's just getting closer and closer and closer to -3. That means that our limit is -3 as we get closer to -infinity. Yeah? Questions? Yeah? Questions? Yeah, man. I said